Hello and welcome to Harmonic Heart, a music blog dedicated to showcasing musicians' stories and talent. I'm Chris Millette. I'm excited to have my friend Tanim Awwal here for a harmonic interview today. Tanim is a singer-songwriter and guitarist, and I'm excited to sit and talk with him. We're going to talk about how he got into music, some of his upbringing, and just his experiences performing live, and also taking vocal lessons and guitar lessons. So yes, Tanim, come on in.
Hey.
Yo, hey man. Cool. So Tanim's gonna start us off with a treat. He's gonna perform for us a song. Can you kind of give a little preface and maybe the name of the song and um, maybe like what the song is about or like what you like about the song?
Sure. Um, so the song is called Last Lullaby. I'll talk a little about it afterwards.
All
But
right.
it was inspired by, it's going to be very similar to Etta James' song, I'd Rather Go Blind.
So is this an original song?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, sweet, awesome.
No one likes to say you're just enough to be loved for only a night. Like the cigarettes sucked past the ashes, tossed aside after light. Did you think you can wipe me off your skin? Same as drinking coffee in the morning. So sing my last lullaby. I'm not the one you want, just the one you need. I kissed the street, then terrace and taking flight. So why can't I be more than a candle, burning bright till the end of the week? So sing goodnight of the night. Are we really this lonely to go home with a stranger in a city where no one knows your name and to not behaving to do just the same? So sing goodnight of the night. My last lullaby.
All right, thank you. That was great.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, man. Oh, sweet. Wow. Whew. Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, Tanim, you're our first Harmonic Heart performance, man.
um, Thanks, Ben. I was really nervous considering my mouth is really dry from fasting today.
Oh, goodness. Well, so um, Yeah, man. So we met in 2017 at an open mic, Crescent Moon Nights, open mic at Sankofa Cafe and Bookstore in DC.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. You know, that was cool. And then we've just known each other since and been to other open mics together, performing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've always been pretty intimidated and shy when it comes to performances, but you were really welcoming that day, and you had your whole crew, and they were so supportive. I was like, oh wow, I never invite anyone because I'm too nervous.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad. Yeah, that's something that I really want people to feel. And yeah, I mean, I felt like you were personable. Like um, yeah, just because I thought you had already known my friend Rico. I thought you guys were like, had like gone like back or something.
No,
So,
that was a credit to him. He was being really friendly, so I was like, oh, thank God.
wow.
I knew the organizers tangentially. I don't know how. There's some thing back in college, but that was like 10 years ago. And I
Hmm,
just saw his invite. I'm like, oh, I always see this, and I've always ignored them because I didn't live in DC.
hmm.
I'm like, I'll just go this time.
So was that your first um Crescent Moon Nights open mic?
That was my first, yeah.
Oh, okay. Really nice.
That was like 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah, maybe even like, yeah, like 2.5. I'll have
Because
to
you,
tell Rico
because
that,
you're doing your master's program, right?
yeah, I was, yeah, in the masters. And yeah, I had just put out like my album, so I was doing a lot more performing to support that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was part of that run. Yeah. Um, oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna let Rico know that he was really warm. He's done that with another friend of mine too, so I don't think he would give himself enough credit for that. So,
Thanks.
all right, well, sweet man. Yeah, so I feel like that brings us to a nice point. Like, how did you like, get into music?
Yeah.
Yeah, in general.
Um. So for me, it was like my way of being an escape.
Mm,
So growing up, music was actually forbidden in my house.
mm,
Not because of a religious thing, but because my mom grew up classically trained in a certain type of singing style in Bangladesh. That's where she's
mm,
from.
mm,
And I think when I was 2 or 3, her voice, I think, developed nodes. So this thing that she spent 4 hours a day practicing when her prime suddenly gave way, and then she kind of felt like it wasn't helpful.
mm,
So growing up, I sang, but then during puberty, I just the vocal cracks. It was just like I just didn't know how to handle it,
mm,
and I just stuck to playing music. So I was a drummer until I was 17.
mm,
Um, but music was kind of like the thing not to do. And then my brother, who never played an instrument, suddenly dropped out of well, not suddenly, but dropped out of college to be a DJ, and then
mm,
became
mm,
even more taboo. So I just ended up studying and being some type of try hard, and joined the Peace Corps, did all sorts of things until I came to DC again in 2016 and realized I had no hobbies.
mm,
Um, and then the question is, I think this is a big thing with people in my generation, is that so much of our purpose growing up is to be about our job to fulfill us. And it doesn't have to, it can just be something altruistic, or it can be something not altruistic, that by the time they reach they get their first job or whatever it is, their first time to just sit and kind of reflect, they realize we kind of become used to people where we say, I used to do X, Y, and Z, and then, but now I just work, or now I do happy hours. And so for me, um, I suddenly realized that I avoided doing things so insecure. Like singing was the number one thing. Like I play guitar and my dad would ask me to sing something. I'd sing and he'd turn on CNN. It's just not a good look. So my mom said, if you like doing this, you should just take lessons.
mm,
So it was between this and boxing when I started. I'm like, all right, I only have time and energy for one, so I chose music.
mm.
But
Wow.
it's just, yeah.
Hmm. Wow, that's interesting. And yeah, so many people relate to that. I think, yeah, I guess if we could clarify, so you said your mom, was there, did there come a point where she had trouble singing or something
She
like
developed
that?
vocal nodes, so it just hurt to sing.
Oh, it hurt. Oh, she got nodes, like the bumps on your throat,
Yeah,
like your vocal cords. So,
yeah.
so that, yeah, I imagine that'd be really
I
like
imagine.
tragic
Because I
and
remember I was 3, so I had no idea. So it took me years later to realize that a lot of times, a lot of her regrets was singing because it's something she loved, but she couldn't do anymore. And I
Mm.
think she, in her own way, didn't want me to do it. But now I think as I'm getting older, she realizes that I can have it all. I can be working and I can be singing. So
Oh.
she's more supportive. She definitely has a critical eye. So sometimes it's very stressful to sing with her. But recently she hasn't minded my voice. But for the first 2 years in DC, I would get to a point where I'd write a song. And I tend to write music. And she would just be like, why can't you just cover other music? And I would be like, very stressful.
Well, I mean, well, that's incredible. So she was classically trained, but yeah, I could just imagine, her maybe disappointment from the nodes, and it seems like, yeah, you feel pressure too from.
Yeah, and I think one time she said she regretted not pushing me to sing after I stopped singing because she said I used to have such a nice voice, but she just felt like it wasn't a good path, and I think she regrets that now because she sees how much effort I put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think another fear was, which is common, is that they were afraid that I would sing and pursue as a professional passion. And not that I am not passionate about music, but I don't want to overcorrect myself. Like I realized for me, music is my way of not becoming a workaholic. I wouldn't want to become a workaholic with music.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that helps me grow, and that's very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I relate to that. Being in graduate school and still doing music, and I think there was a moment where I realized, oh, I can do both, and I don't have to choose one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think something I realized is that I didn't do things growing up because I said, what's the point? I'm not good at it. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that, not to put my efforts down, but I realized it's important to be mediocre at everything. Like you might not be the best at something, but you're still growing. Like I'm not a visual person at all. And I realized that I never drew things. I know that if I start drawing things now, at least something in my brain is growing. If you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly studying and you're constantly, I mean, grad school, when I was in grad school, there's just so much pressure to perform. If you don't have something on the side, you lose a lot of your senses one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't know that you started with drums. That's interesting, or like percussion.
Yeah, I was a drummer. I was in a shitty high school band when I was 17.
Like a garage band, or like
Yeah,
the.
literally a basement band that
Oh.
sometimes went to the garage. I was a drummer, so and it was weird because I didn't understand at the time. So I grew up South Asian, so I didn't really understand the music my mom would sing.
Mm.
But I also, as a result, living in a multilingual household, didn't necessarily grow up with the classic rock that every other white person likes to talk about, or R&B or other things that people listen to. My dad listened to 70s disco because he went to school in Europe, and my mom listened to classical Bangla. So it wasn't until I was 13 that I really tried on the radio before I really used the internet to try to figure out lyrics on things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as a result, I would, in my band, I love the Chili Peppers, but that's all we would play. And I'm just like, why can't we write our own music? So I wrote my first song on a guitar when I was 17. I think whether it's through stubbornness or something, I ended up enjoying creating songs. Like if I tried to cover something, I would learn some of the songs, but then I would take that idea and try to make something new with it. So I was the asshole that would never follow Lego instructions. I would just make my own shit, which has its perks, but also has its downsides.
Mm. Yeah, you're making your own way, man. Yeah,
Mm.
blazing your own trail. Yeah, could you speak some more to the music that you heard growing up? I just when we were talking before, it sounded interesting about you not being able to understand the music you were listening to growing up, and that seems to kind of influence your process now today.
Yeah, it influenced me because I just like when people would like show me classic rock music and they're like, wow, this is like real music. I realized it takes a while to understand it. Like if someone gave someone a very intense Baroque piece and they were analyzing it, a layman would not enjoy it as much as someone who grew up with it and understood it. And so here I was, like even open mic nights. You'll go to places where everyone's playing the same classic rock music, and people really get it. Like you happen to feel it, and I don't feel it. And it took me a long time to like actually enjoy live music, and still in many ways because I'm not acclimated. Like I think it's really easy to shit on country, right? If you're from the urban areas, because it's not relatable. And it's not necessarily that country is easy to sing. It's very difficult to sing, but being acclimated is very important. And I think being South Asian in America, where I didn't I didn't know Led Zeppelin wasn't a person until I was like 14, 15. And
Mm-hmm.
so just trying to get myself to like appreciate it, I had to like develop new ways to appreciate songs because I didn't grow up with it.
Mm. Yeah. So in terms of your musical taste now, how do you think that music, I guess I'm curious if you try to recreate elements of that music in what you do today, or do you more so try to take on mostly rock elements, or do you feel like you've just absorbed everything and it just comes out as you?
I think so. There's a few things. One is like environment, right? So I'll be the first to say that because we kind of live in a space that's like for like a certain race, right? Like we're constantly dealing with pop or dichotomy. Like it's either like African American influence, and everything's African American influence, but more catered to that versus like listening to more rock, which is a different style. Um, I there's some things I really enjoy, but I think recently, last October, I listened to like an Indian artist who's doing rock music, and there's nothing Indian about his music other than the fact that he happens to be Indian and he writes it. And his music videos have a track of South Asian people. And I think that whole element of it clicked on me because it started relatable. The song, the artist is Pratik Pod, and the song is Cold Mess. So that was on Obama's playlist, which was cool because a lot of my non-brown friends went. But for me, that was the first real cover I really enjoyed doing because even though it was the same Western music that I grew up with, it was someone that had my voice. So it's like the equivalent of when people ask me if I've seen The Big Sick, right? Like or Hassan Minaj, where like suddenly my face is on something, even though it's not the same race, same anything. I'm Bangladeshi origin from Jersey. That guy's from Delhi, from India. But to see that was interesting because I think a lot of it is that oftentimes when I write a song, I kind of picture how I look like playing it. And that is like this weird, like, I think because I'm so depersonalized being minority, that's very important for me to see how I can relate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are certain elements I really like I like listening to math rock because it's so different. But I don't know if I've been able to incorporate it. I love learning blues because it just helps me kinesthetically learn something different on my guitar. And I feel like guitar and drums are great because it's so much of his finger work, so I can kind of like sift right through it. And singing is a little different. It's like a different beast. But when it comes to like something relatable, sometimes I feel kind of left out, even though I listen to the same music because I realize I'm not necessarily involved. I know that's selfish to say, but it matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, growing up, I would look at this music blog. It was called La Blogger Tech, and they had a bunch of like indie artists. So that's how I learned a lot of my indie music. And there was one in particular. They were the Thermals, and then there was like a black girl in the Thermals, and I was like really riding for her. Like, yeah, like we're in this genre. But I guess I mean but then even with that, you know, black people started rock as a genre in general, and they get, I guess, filtered down or changed over time and things. But
Yeah, I mean, like, have you listened to Twin Shadows?
Twin Shadows, no, I haven't listened to them.
So I recommend it because he's so artistic, but he like creates like almost like a. Have you seen Mad Max?
No, the movie.
Oh, so he does like so these things are typically like white spaces. Like he
Mm,
will add his own elements to it and add like people of color, and he's very artistic. His music videos are very intense, and I can appreciate that because like there's a lot of perspectives outside the mainstream thing where you're looking at things differently, and
mm,
it's very difficult when people say they want to write social justice music. Because then it just becomes campy. But there's a it's not actually social justice, but it's a different perspective, right?
mhm,
So like the last song I wrote, um, the hook from "I'd Rather Go Blind" from Etta James was like it hooked onto me, but the song itself and like well, it was two things. One, I was learning scale, so I wanted to the way I learned is I'll create a song about it. But two, I was like it was basically about the feeling that when you realize you're on a date and the date supposedly goes well and then you realize that you were someone's one night stand and you didn't, and so the idea of pleading in your head, right? I
mm,
mean,
yeah,
I think it's a DC thing because we're in the city,
mhm,
where you'll go on dates and probably online dating, so you don't really know where it goes because no one's gonna be honest about it. It's very difficult to tell someone I want to just be with you for a night because I'm bored.
mm,
There's a lot of shame. If there are people like that, I applaud them. But it doesn't always work out that way, male or female. And then definitely I had an instance with in my past where several times I realized, oh, this is, I really like this person. And you realize that you were the one that stand. And then how do you plead to someone that you sound so lame? And it's like the idea of last lullaby. So blending all that was interesting because I was learning something kinesthetically. I had something that was like connecting to me, but at the same time, the subject matter was very personal because at the time, the persons that I was writing about, some of them were Muslim, and it's really weird. So I play that song in a Muslim space oftentimes. It will make people uncomfortable because our culture is so outwardly not open about these things. And they happen, they really do. And when I wrote that song, I was in space because it was revolving around Muslim dating. And I don't necessarily date just Muslims, but just happen to be that. And so it was very personal and it was very shameful. And I think that shame, and maybe I'm an emotional masochist because I'm always afraid of singing and all this stuff, is like important for me because it's my way of being strong.
Interesting. Yeah, like pushing through those feelings of shame and fear.
Yeah, and I think probably because the subject matter is difficult because my path into music is difficult because there's no real path to relate to, right? You can say that the guitarist in Soundgarden was South Asian, but it's like one-off things. You can say Jay Sean is Indian British, but a lot of people don't even realize that because he kind of whitewashed himself when he went mainstream. And it's not the idea that I need to be unapologetically brown, because I mean you're already going to see that, and no one wants to see it shoved down their throat. But it's just like that's what I am. It's part of my identity, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, there's I'm curious. Well, even just off of what you just said, do you feel part of what you're doing is broadening your culture and what's expected, like as a form of activism? Or do you feel more so that you're just striving to tell your own story and be authentic to yourself? Or both?
I've definitely written songs that are activist like, and
But
that's
even,
been
I guess, even like in a sense of, you know, like the last lullaby song, like to in a like a song where you're speaking on a topic that's kind of counter to your culture. Would you see that as like a form of broadening?
yeah. I would say that it's a form of the problem is that you can follow the rules, but eventually if something goes outside the rules, right, you have no one to protect you. So in this case, right, like you can be pure and do whatever a good Muslim or American is supposed to do, but if you try to just reach out of it, you'll kind of get ostracized for it. And so I think I wrote it without thinking about it until like a lot of these things are subconscious. And for me, that was important because it was also a declaration of myself too. Like I'm not being honest with myself, and it's very important musically for me to be honest with myself. And so my music is a way for me to subconsciously pull out things that aren't just things that are happening to me, but things I'm actively doing myself. Like I wrote a song called Autumn, which was about someone I knew who had dated this guy for 3 years and realized that he was cheating on her with someone the whole time or part of it, and nobody even knew that person existed. And so at the end of the day, she felt like, and it's not just, but at the end of the day, like someone's just saying, oh, you had fun, didn't you? And then that feels like what DC is sometimes. People are just wasting their times traumatizing each other until they said, how what? So for me, that's a critique on myself too, because my rules are not special. So people ahead of me are doing that, then so will I, unless I change.
Yeah, I was curious, what are some of the other themes that you write about in your songs?
Let's see. So recently, it's some of the songs I wrote. One was I wrote a song about calming someone's anxiety, like grounding them.
You said in terms of like coming to terms with anxiety.
Yeah, like so like I can just do like a lick, but not don't sing it too much.
Yeah, oh sweet.
But I had noticed that this person was like anxious. So I was like, well, what are some things I can do? So it's like in key of C. Don't mess around, baby, with thoughts stuck to your mind. If time travels too far, then ground your lips to mine. Your day has been overwhelming with tasks that ask way too much. If your body is misunderstanding, then touch your toes to mine. I know you try hard to say don't worry. When you give, you're all to be kind. You think you're a bad with all of your tears, but baby, you're making me cry. Oh my, I'll stop there. But the lyrics are about the idea that if sometimes when you have an anxiety attack, I notice you kind of think way too advanced. Like, oh, if this doesn't happen, what's going to happen now? Everything's going to be over. So just the idea of just grounding her and the idea of making her not feel as worse when she's like anxious and like, especially if they're performing so much. So that was interesting because that was the song that wasn't the opposite of Last Lullaby, where I'm not complaining about something, but trying to be caring, which is a lot harder. I think nurture goes away when you try to sacrifice it for independence.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that was lovely in terms of just comforting a friend through music. For sure. Yeah, that there's a Jack Johnson song that kind of has it's finger picking and it always calms me down when I'm feeling really anxious. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, could you speak to a bit more of how you take from other like art pieces and then create something new from that?
Yeah, so let's see. So with the first song, Last Lullaby, there's a few things. So like, obviously the I'd Rather Go Blind has the first major and then the second minor. I don't know if I'm using the proper terms, but in this case it'll be C to a D. But then the I got that from I got the idea from Jimi Hendrix, Wind Cries Mary, which is after all the jasmine and boxes and the clouds have gone all to bed. So not the same songs, but I like that feeling of the. So I wanted to combine that to the. So not exactly the same, but just the idea was something I thought would be interesting.
Oh, I see. Yes, like similar rhythmically and kind of going up higher frequencies, higher pitches. Yeah.
And then like, there's more, but that's one thing where I'll listen to something and just be like, oh, this is I want to play around with this and see what I can get out of that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a tangible example.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, that's cool that you were in a high school band. I've noticed you also have some friends here you jam with too. Um, have you noticed any differences between jamming back then and jamming today?
So much easier back then. It's so difficult here. I would love if people just said they wanted to play with me, but I think because music becomes more and more personal when you're older. So people either become self-conscious of it, like they feel like they're not ready yet, or they're just lost in their own world. But I don't know, but that also includes me, right? It's not just other people, it's me. Like, I think many reasons why I play and I practice so much is because I never feel like I'm good enough to play with the people that I admire. So I just keep on practicing. I don't know until my guitar teacher said, you should just try to find anyone. Because I think, and this goes back to outcome, my fear is that I'm not good enough. So as a result, I'm not trying to reach out to people. And then I think I focus too much on, so it's like, I'll give you the most Asian example. It's like in high school, I should say Asian, but like stereotypically, in high school, you're worried about getting to one school. So let's say it's like UMD, and you really want to get into UMD, and that's all you care about. And you take the test, and you're so focused on UMD, you don't realize that learning to study for that test, the SATs, will let you get into other schools as well. And so you get so tied up into that one school, and it's stressful, right? I think I applied to 4 schools for grad school, and I was bummed because I didn't get to 2 of them, but it wasn't as bad as like for undergrad, because when I didn't get to school as my choice, I felt so much shame. And I feel like that's with music too, where you focus so much on meeting these not so easy to obtain because they're so specific objectives, right? Like, if someone says, I just want to be a good singer, well, what does that mean, right? Like, it's better like, hey, I just want to learn how to sing on tune. That's one thing. Or, hey, I just want to have the experience of singing my scales twice or thrice a week because I know that will improve me. And now I'm realizing that with collaboration, I don't have that muscle yet to build like the habit where like, hey, I feel comfortable reaching out to people with mic fights and making the time. And I also know how to filter out people who I think aren't going to make time, because you can have people who say they're interested, but if they're not showing up on time, especially if like spaces cost money, if you're constantly having to convince them to play with you, up to what point is that worth it? So I guess I'm very intimidated. I would love if anybody out there wants to play music with me, wants to even just, I don't know, sneeze a tune or something in like a park or something, I'd be down, just because I don't have that habit.
Yeah, no, yeah, I relate to that. Yeah, man, we can jam too. We can jam once the quarantine's over. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah, no, I relate to
And
that.
I also feel that way about songwriting too. I feel like a lot of people who are way more technically proficient than me, like by far, and maybe this is also the classical music trap, because you meet a lot of people who are classical music heads. I mean, like violin and whatnot, and they don't write their own music because they've already created such advanced music from masters but the guitar was not designed for that. The guitar was designed for common people, right? You just need someone to learn. No one can learn guitar in a day, but everyone can learn chords in a month. You only need to know a few chords to write one shitty song, but that is your stepping stone. Like,
Right.
my first song, the first song I ever wrote, mind you, I never knew I had this Washburn Electric with the action was so high that it took me 4 years to just bar a chord. Not that I barred it well here. And then I just decided, well, I know one chord and a D key. Oh, what if I just take it? I was like, hey, what does this sound like? And then it's times like these that feel so real. Something like that. I don't know. It's been a while, but that was the first song I ever wrote, and it still slaps if I still remember the lyrics and like never sing that high again in my life. And that's my first shitty song. And I'm glad that that was my first song, because it's just a thought that you're creating. Everyone's written shitty 8th grade middle school poetry about the first crush they ever had, about how their parents don't understand them. They probably still don't understand them. But somehow we just got beaten out of the fact that we can't write shitty poetry music. And I get it. Like, restarting guitar after years of just having a guitar rather than playing it was very hard. But just learning to develop a habit, I think, is the most helpful thing for me personally, because ultimately I'm a collection of habits. I don't have that long-term vision that I can complete without small stepping stones.
Yeah, your habits, and how do your vocal and guitar lessons tie into those habits?
Oh, so much. So I started off with vocal lessons. My teacher was Sammy Hush. He's in Baltimore. Incredible teacher, because I realized very quickly that if he had me do covers, I just wasn't having it. So he was able to intuitively help me figure out how to develop my scales, develop my depth, learn to sing from my diaphragm, and just having me keep on going to the point where I felt like I could project, right? Like, and you can kind of physically tell a difference, because I would sing a song. I called it capo test. So I would sing a song in like a regular key. So it's a long way down from heaven. So that's the first song you ever heard me sing.
Right, yeah.
And then suddenly I can do it 2 steps higher because I did enough scales. So it's a long way down from heaven. And then there were certain things that I couldn't do with that song, like sing high. So I was like, so there's a break. There's like, it's on my motion, babe. It's all in my motion, babe. All in my sweet devotion. All in my motion, babe. All in my sweet motion, baby. Sweet motion, baby. And I could not hit that note for the life of me 3 years ago.
Wow.
So so just like the two thing, like learning to sing higher, learning to like to hit those notes. So, and then he moved to Baltimore, so I didn't see him for a while. And then I realized, like, crap, all my friends are good at guitar. I want to learn to jam with them. So then I had my guitar teacher at South Brunswick, Beth Cannon, who was just so helpful, because, like, again, I think a good teacher is someone who can figure out your learning style and kind of not push you, but at the same time. And another thing that was great about South Brunswick and Beth in particular is that it wasn't just simply like Sammy taught me how to, well, at least taught me the very basics of singing, right? I can't say he taught me everything yet because it's only been a year. But Beth, I was able to ask questions about guitar pedals, right? Or like stage presence. So one of the tricks I've done was, because I noticed when I was playing live sets, I couldn't always hear myself. I felt like I was out of pitch. So she recommended saying putting one earplug in. And so now if I perform live, it's easier to keep tune, and I don't blow my voice out, because I kept on blowing my voice out, singing loud on the microphone. So it was just little nuances that I learned from her. Then like Seven Drum City has like this recital, so like wearing these same clothes, I performed like a cover I really liked, and just having that space was amazing, because then I can just like try to seduce people to come to like practice with me. I'm like, hey, I'm so cool, look at this space. But just learning guitar, the two things I can control, right? I can't control suddenly being good, but I can control learning the basics of guitar. I can control the singing part. And I give myself credit for knowing that I want to seek help, right? Like if you have mental health issues, the hardest thing is just picking up the phone and calling someone. And on a much, much lower scale, if you feel really insecure about your voice and singing, just seeking out help, whether it's going to a choir like you did, or whether it's finding a teacher. Like I was willing to put my money where my mouth was and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also curious to hear about you kind of, well, you started on acoustic and then kind of adding on electric too.
Oh yeah, I've always had electric, but I remember someone I really looked up to
Mm-hmm.
introduced me to someone and said, "Oh, this is Tanim. He does acoustic," and I don't know why that just like horrified me so much. It horrified me a lot because I didn't want to be known as that. Because look, every person plays acoustic and everyone's entitled to their thing, but like, I was missing out on those things. And yeah, I could have specialized and done really cool. Well, I don't know if I could have done it, but I could have just thought, okay, I'm just going to stick to acoustic. But there's definitely a sonic value you get from like playing electric. Like it's so sensitive, it's intimidating. I don't know how you feel about playing electric, but for me, electric is very intimidating, like the best way possible. I think Dave Grohl kind of said it best, where when he was a drummer for Foo Fighters, it was like in the background, he was able to really feel the band. But when you're up front center playing lead guitar, singing, you're in front of everybody. And nothing, and at least with an acoustic, you can kind of hide behind the ambiance. You can be like, but if you're playing electric, there's no room to fuck up, unless you can really hide it well. But then that means you're kind of talented. But then you can kind of like make fun songs. Like that song was something that the first song was an example of like a song that I wrote on electric because it's just easier to play. But it could be something just a lot fun. Like, so I don't think it'll sound good without fun. But just like something that can be like just something that's a different setting, whether it's punk or whether it's something like that. I think it's a lot different. And even like just the sound is different. Then there's pedals, right? And pedals will suck your money, but then also make you think of different things. Like anyone that's tried a wah pedal for the first time will be like, wow. I mean, that's yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean that pun, but it's literally the reaction because you're just changing the whole thing. But it's scary. Like trying to do an open mic night with the acoustic guitar is incredibly difficult unless you have like a good open mic night organizer, like at Soft House or
you told me about that.
At Boundary Stone. Otherwise, people are just not prepared for it. Like I remember I went to one open mic night, which I really respect and really like, and they have the sound system. But then I gave them my guitar, and I'm like, oh, I see an amp. It plugged into the PA system. I sounded so dry. I sounded so terrible. And then the last open mic night I did, just bringing an amp because I was like, I wasn't gonna take my chances bringing a guitar. And also, not everybody in an open mic night wants to hear electric because electric sounds good in the band. But for me, that was like my way of honing a skill that I wouldn't normally. Because yeah, acoustic will sound better in open mic night, but electric, I'm learning something different, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, even that makes sense with your basement band, and you guys were doing a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers and those rock songs.
Yeah, I don't think we qualify as being good enough to be able to say we covered it properly. But yeah, as a drummer, it was interesting to see how much more courage I had because I can just be in the background. And when you're young, you don't know any better, right? So I now feel it for all those guitarists that I played with. Yeah, no wonder they're always nervous when we played Learn to Fly by Foo Fighters in front of his whole high school. God,
I like hearing about just the differences between acoustic and electric. Because of course, I mean, if you play guitar, you play guitar. But there are differences.
Yeah, and I actually don't agree with that because I feel like every guitar. So let's find a microcosm. You remember your first shitty acoustic? Right. You have a Taylor. You have a Taylor right now, right?
Fender. Yeah.
Fender. Yeah, a Fender. So the difference, I had a Washburn that's actually so high that it was frustrating to play it. And as soon as I learned I can play easier guitars, it changed things for me, right? But on an electric scale, like you're different. Like when you imagine yourself on stage playing electric versus when you're playing like rock wouldn't be rock if Jimmy Page played with an acoustic, right? If he played if you played with like a Gibson Hummingbird versus a Gibson Les Paul or a Fender Telecaster, I think there's only one. I think there's only one video of Jimi Hendrix playing on acoustic. I think it was 12 string at that. It's a different sound, just like yeah, just like if you're putting in a different beat or different types of drum, it makes a difference. And the only way I can say is kinesthetically, just like how you're able to make that sound and how that sound sounds will change the way you think about songs.
Yeah, I know like with acoustic, I do, you know, a lot of open chords and bar chords, but of course with acoustic, it's pretty much the one sound. But then even when I think about and see people that play electric, the scales they play and the chords they're able to do, and like the finger, like the chord formulations, fingerings. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but it seems like it'd be harder to do that on an acoustic.
It's harder on acoustic, and also think about it, how many acoustic people say I play lead versus rhythm?
Right.
They usually say I play guitar and then instrumental, or I sing with guitar. But immediately when you're playing electric, you distinguish that very quickly. So an electric becomes like where an acoustic guitar becomes a generalist, and electric becomes like a very specific instrument in an electric orchestra. And that's what makes it change, right? Because suddenly you can have your electric be a lead versus your electric being a rhythm. So you have the bass to like. So what was interesting was one of the few times I collaborated with a drummer playing the first song I played. It was so cool to think about my song in the concept of how that rhythm would change what my lead would say. Because for this last 3 years, everything has just been me singing, me playing guitar, me trying to get better at guitar so I can play lead stuff while singing, but thinking, oh wait, I can take a step back. And like my favorite guitarist from Cavett, she talks about, because she for a long time did all this math rock thing on herself, but when she had her band, she suddenly realized she can relax on the guitar part and let the bass and drums kind of fill out that. And that's very different when you have an acoustic, because oftentimes you're a one-man army. And so the only difference is maybe occasionally you'll just switch your acoustic for ukulele to be a little lighter. And that's a huge generalization, but that's what I feel like. Because how many people do you say, hey, we're a guitar duo and I'm going to do lead, I'm going to do rhythm while singing Jason Mraz?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I consider myself more of a rhythm guitarist, and also I try to incorporate melodies into my guitar playing. And I guess finger picking is like the easier way to do that versus like playing scales on acoustic.
But yeah, because your acoustic, you're developing harmony at the same time. It's like you're trying to do what you're doing on piano, where you're playing harmony and melody at the same time, and your voice isn't always going to carry the melody on that. It's going to be other layers. You're essentially trying to do a whole band in 2 instruments, your mouth and your guitar.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we covered a lot of ground here. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Is there anything you want to share with our group? We're gonna have you have another song prepared for us to play as well.
Oh man, yeah. Although I'm worried, am I singing too much? I know I brought my guitar out and played certain things. Let me know for pacing.
No. I mean, it was cool. We had the full song in the beginning. In the middle were more just kind of snippets, like examples. Yeah. And where do you want people to like follow you if they want to keep up with you?
One word: brown guys reading. The reasoning behind it is when I used to be a firefighter, nobody believed me. I mean, I was a volunteer firefighter, but so was most firefighters in this country. No one believed me at all. It was like this weird thing, like this tiny brown guy. Well, no one said out loud. Some did. And then, but if I told people I like reading, because I do, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I realized that racially, to make myself attractive, I can only say I read. Because if I try to do so-called American masculine things, no one would believe me anyway.
That's funny.
It's like me saying I'm a professional basketball player. Get the fuck out of here.
That's interesting. That's cool. I forgot that you were volunteer firefighter.
Right. How could anyone remember?
Like carrying this big old hose and stuff. Okay.
That's
All
a
right, man.
very heavy hose, man. Let me tell you, lifting a person is very heavy. I don't know how I passed it. I was confused. I didn't say I was a good one, but I was one.
You lifted a
Probably
person?
because, what's up?
You lifted a person?
Not by myself. The last real accident we were in, we definitely had to lift someone out of a truck, and that was difficult. But I was proud of myself for not freezing. I think that was the most important thing. So like firefighting taught me about process, because in the beginning I had such imposter syndrome because all these people knew how to use a chainsaw because their dad grew up with it, and here I am being this white collar ninny who went to grad school, right? And these people went to trade school,
Right.
and I didn't drink beer, and I don't know sports. Or I didn't know hockey. And I remember like New Year's, there was a call, and I didn't know what to do, and someone just gave me the hose while everyone was like rescuing someone accident. Accidents are the hardest one, so like I can't be this useless. So I just focused on just doing what I could in training, and I think that mindset helped me because I was already studying humanitarian policy at the time. That during that accident, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do what I could, and so I got up, helped, was one of many to lift the actual car off. The truck was very battered, and like I helped hold the head while everyone else held everything else. And I was like, okay, at least that was a process. And I really do care, but think the process is so important when it comes to anything like music. Like if you can't get a song, that's fine. What are the things you can't get out of a song? Is it the chords? Is it the rhythm? Is it the singing? Oftentimes it's the singing. So like maybe you can sing it 2 steps slower, or maybe you can just warm up your voice and do scales until you get to that, right? Like the Kappa method. That's why I call it. And I think that's important, and for me too. And I think another thing I didn't think about was just also controlling your mental health, because so many times you're so frustrated you don't want to pick a guitar up, and that sucks. It really does. And I would go for performances. I would go without performing for like 2 months for every performance. I just felt like crap all the time, like I wasn't good, and not realizing one of my friends I credit just she would go to open mic nights every week, and following her, and I think that habit made me less scared. I mean, I still nervously peed 5 times before performance, every single time. Guarantee my voice it was dry as it is now, but at least I'm not as intimidated. Where before I'm like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to go. Yeah, but everyone's different, right? Like I'm not competitive. I'm jealous, right? But I'm not competitive. I'm very hard on myself. So for me, it's important to build myself up. But other people, maybe their inner Michael Jordan's coming out and they got to compete rather than Last Lullaby, be Last Dance. I don't know. But I think that finding your learning style, whether it's visual, like Guitar Hero is the worst thing for me because I'm not visual. Rocksmith is the worst thing for me. I can't stare at a screen and do it. It's just not. But if you give me a few chords and give me a scale and tell me to write a song or do something, that will be how I learn that scale. So everyone's different, and like no one should ever be like, well, when I was your age, I did everything right. No one did it right. So I'll segue into that saying that I so because my thing is that my rule is that no one's special, right? So 5 years ahead of you, if someone's messing up, so are you, unless you change things. And another thing I noticed is guys tend to lionize their deeds when they're older. Like when I was your age, nothing bad happened. And then why can't you just be like me? I'm just already smart at your age. And so I write a journal to my future kids that are unborn. I have no plans of anyone falling in love with me that I think about. But it keeps me kind of, it helps kind of correct my course. I try to be honest. My music, I try to be honest. Always gonna lie, one way or another.
Oh, you're breaking up a little there.
What's that?
Sorry, you're breaking up a little there.
Oh.
Yeah. So I heard you say you have this journal for your kids that you're kind of writing and jotting down tips for them.
To kind of keep myself accountable. So during quarantine, I wrote 2 songs. One of them I kind of finished up, and it's kind of a lullaby to my kids based off the fact that I keep on writing to them, and maybe I'm going crazy, or maybe I'm thinking, just being reflective. So
that's lovely. Yeah, we brought up mental health a couple of times during the interview. What are some ways that you tend to your own mental health?
I see a therapist hands down.
Okay. Yeah.
That's important. It to me is like how I see my teachers, like my singing teacher, is that oftentimes people go to a therapist and kind of just unload on them and then they wait for a next session. Well, I don't have that privilege because Kaiser only lets me see him once every 5 weeks. But he'll give me assignments, and I realize if I don't do those assignments, I'm not getting the most out of the thing I'm paying for. And along with insurance, and there's copay. Music, there's no insurance for music, so I'm paying money for that. So if I don't put myself into a space where I'm actually doing the work, whether it's learning the skills or whether it's singing and practicing, then I'm not getting the most out of it. So mental health I take very seriously because I don't know, everyone has something in DC. I mean, they just do, and I'm determined not to. It's so easy to it's not easy to unlearn what kind of makes you tick, because sometimes we define ourselves based on our trauma, and to let that go is scary. Like, I think I read this in a book that my therapist recommended me, How to Be Your Own Best Friend, is that people are more likely to be miserable because it's familiar than to be happy because it's unfamiliar, and that's scary.
Right.
And for me, music was an act of doing something very scary. And I'm always frightened, but at the same time, I know that it's better than where I wasn't, where this new layer to my being didn't exist before. And during the quarantine where everyone's anxious all the time, including myself, I'm incredibly grateful that I have a mindset where I can think about, what can I do to change things, right? So like, I'm an avid coffee drinker, so I bought coffee supplies. I haven't seen my vocal teacher since he moved to Baltimore, so I hit him up again in addition to my music lessons. So I play video games, but I can recognize that being creative is a different form of therapy for me. Or not just, I don't think it's therapy, like, because writing's more therapeutic, but being creative is like a different form of productivity for me outside of work. So when I'm stressed out, maybe I won't do music, but I will schedule time to say, well, this will make me happier if I can do it better. I'm so glad I have those tools, because if I didn't have those tools, what would I be doing? Right? Like, I mean, Pornhub may be free, but that's only going to take you so long. Yeah. I mean, everyone's seen the SNL with Pornhub right now, so it's okay to say. But there's only so much you can do. There's only so much you can stress eat without realizing you're gonna get diabetes. There's only so much you can Zoom people and be social. I mean, I quit Facebook and Instagram for 2 weeks during the quarantine because I knew that I would just get way too stressed out. And I'm glad I did, because it let me figure out what my habits were.
Man, well, I mean, that makes me happy to hear. And then creativity and songwriting, music, all the things you were saying just kind of helps us to, on a deeper level, get to know ourselves and uncover things in ourselves and grow on a deeper level too.
But there's negatives to it too. I mean, what if you constantly are reading into yourself all the time, producing, and suddenly you realize that not everyone is, and then suddenly they want to, and I think famous people, and that aren't me, always talk about this in the beginning. They talk about something relatable and everyone loves them, and then they start talking about their success, and then they sound like douchebags, but really it's because they don't find anything relatable anymore. And I'm realizing that I don't want to alienate myself from everyone because I'm constantly trying to like fix things. So I definitely am anxious about that sometimes, where I'll like create stuff and then suddenly I realize that I don't know, I carry a normal conversation. I don't want to be, just how I don't want to be a workaholic. I don't want to be a creative person that just constantly is self-absorbed. And I don't know where that is because I have imposter syndrome already. So it's a whole bag of tricks.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think about that as well, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, man, thank you again for coming on. It's been sweet digging in, learning more, talking more. Yeah. So do you want to do?
Thanks for letting me on, Ben.
Huh?
Sure. I'll apologize for my dry voice.
Oh no, man. Yeah. And what is this song?
How's the audio?
That's pretty good. Like a
Can
little
you hear
low.
me?
We can hear you. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little low, but we can hear you.
Okay. I feel like my internet connection is a little unstable.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh yeah. Yeah, you froze. You're frozen there. Okay. All right. So Tanim has frozen. Okay, guys. So we do have a YouTube page. We have a podcast. We're on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter as well. So you guys can check us out there. Okay. And we lost Tanim. So thank you again for watching and listening to our episode interviewing Tanim, this Harmonic Heart interview. Oh, and he's back. Okay, sweet. You're back. All
Oh,
right, cool. We had lost you there for a second.
I'm bad. I'm back.
All right, great, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So,
what's this song?
so this song is a lullaby I wrote
Hmm.
to my unborn kids.
Oh,
God, watch me get hit. No, I don't want to say anything negative.
oh no,
Watch
man.
me just be
No.
potent.
Come on, no, that's very sweet, very
It's,
sweet,
it's
intimate.
okay. I'll adopt.
Okay.
Oh, and also it's all my love of books. So notice. Don't you believe me? Won't you believe me, my child? It is true. The blankets are open, so I've got you tucked inside our folks, so you can see Narnia and castles where the witches fly high. And if you close your eyes, we can cross the bridge to Terabithia. If monsters are creeping underneath bed sheets, don't you worry, my dear, 'cause I won't be farther than a stifled whisper. I'll be on my way, so we can see Narnia and castles where the witches fly high. And if you close your eyes, we can cross the bridge to Terabithia. So I've got this journal, a of how much I loved you since I was 22. So my unborn romance, I saved this last dance to hold you when you shake, so we can see Narnia and castles where the witches fly high. And if you close your eyes, we can cross the bridge to Terabithia.
Sweet. I enjoyed that. That's great. Cool. You gonna